Hello, Shiver Seekers. Are you ready to follow us into the unknown? I'm Cynthia.
And I'm Stephanie. You found the dark oak.
Today, I tell you the story of Emanuela Orlandi. The disappearance of Emanuela has been perplexing the world since the 1980s, and there's a lot of theories out there as to what may have happened to her. Today, we discuss a couple of them.
Welcome to the Dark Oak, the mystery podcast with purpose. Each month through our Branch of Hope Foundation, we give a portion of earnings from our Patreon and sponsors to a nonprofit organization related to the first episode of the month. To find out more information, head to our Instagram account, The Dark Oak Podcast, our website, thedarkoak.com, or remain to the end of this episode and we'll give you all the details. Well, Shiver Seekers, welcome to our 100th episode celebration. We are giving you 2 episodes every week in the months of April and May to celebrate our 100th episode, which just came out a few weeks ago, Cynthia. It still feels like such an accomplishment. Whenever I upload any of our episodes, it says 102, 103. I'm like, it's crazy. It is crazy. So it's our gift to you, our listeners. We are giving you an episode every Wednesday and Friday. I will fully admit it has slipped to sometime on Saturday, but we're giving you 2 episodes every week, and we're loving providing this extra content and giving you more of a chance to get to know us. And then we, in turn, have gotten so many opportunities to get to know you. We've been loving the additional comments that we've been getting on Spotify and Facebook and Instagram and messages you've been sending us about cases that we've covered in the past or cases that you'd like us to cover in the future. And we just love it. We love our little community, and we are so glad that you are here to help us celebrate.
That's right. And Stephanie, speaking of 100, did you see that any day now we are going to celebrate our 100,000th download?
I did see that. On our main feed, I think if you include our YouTube downloads, we may already be there, but officially, yeah, we're coming up on 100,000 downloads. Yeah, and if listeners, if you didn't know, we have a YouTube channel as well. It doesn't have video of Cynthia and I just yet, but you can listen to our full podcast episodes on YouTube if that makes it easier for you to access. We are working on getting some video of Cynthia and I in the studio whenever we can record together, or I guess maybe even we can get video of us recording virtually.
Yeah.
But as we've admitted, we're not totally tech savvy. So we're taking our time on this to make sure it's something that we can accomplish without pulling our hair out. So thank you for bearing with us. But we have a very established YouTube channel that gets a good number of views and comments. And again, you can always catch us over there.
That's right. Speaking of catching us, I wanted to just give a little shout out to a local police department that we heard listens to us on the regular and often has us playing in the back room. So you know who you are, and thanks for listening. And if you have any cold cases you want us to shine some light on, you know how to reach us.
Yes.
We would love to get some cold cases, some more attention. So you know how to find us.
Well, you say that kind of with a smile, Cynthia, but honestly, if there are any cases that we could bring more attention to that haven't been covered, we would love to do that to help the family. And again, if these are local cases, to help our community, to bring more attention to unsolved homicides or missing persons cases. If there's anything we can do, we would love to partner with those families to push that story along.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I was smiling, but I meant it.
Well, I know that you were, but that is such a soft spot for us, right. As creators, as content creators, that we really do want to really want to help and really want to be part of bringing a small amount of comfort to these families and help to law enforcement if possible.
That's right. Anything we can do to help. Well, speaking of helping, this is a case that, man, it's gotten quite a bit of attention over the last several decades, yet it wasn't one I was familiar with, but it's definitely one that I think we need to search for more answers. So let me start off by telling you that to prepare for this episode, I watched a documentary that is available on Netflix called Vatican Girl: The Disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. And this documentary really focuses on one main theory, and there's several prevailing theories as to what may have happened to Orlandi, but this documentary focuses on one big one that we're really going to dive into. And I will tell you, if everything in this documentary is accurate, it is pretty compelling. But like I said, I'm also going to introduce a couple of other theories that I thought could be possibilities. I also want to warn you that this episode, especially the second half, is a little more convoluted than most of the episodes I bring here at the Dark Oak. I'm going to be introducing a lot of different characters and some conspiracy theories to you. And so I want you to know that going into this, that this is one you might want to pay a little bit more attention to. Emanuela Orlandi grew up in a world unlike most. She was one of 5 siblings in a close-knit family that on the surface seemed pretty ordinary. But there was one extraordinary detail that set them apart. The Orlandi family lived within the walls of Vatican City. You see, the Orlandis had spent many years serving the Pope, their legacy stretching back through 7 pontificates. Life inside the Vatican, which is the smallest sovereign state in Europe by both size and population, was peaceful and quiet, and it resembled any other village in many ways, except for the fact that the gates of the city closed promptly at midnight. Other than spending her childhood in this somewhat unusual location, Emanuela was your average teenager. She loved pop music, she really enjoyed playing her flute and the piano, and singing with her music school choir. Our story begins on June 22nd, 1983, a hot summer day in Rome, and on this day, Emanuela had a rehearsal for a show her school was putting on as a celebration for the end of the school year. Now, because it was such a scorcher outside, Emanuela asked her brother Pietro to give her a ride to her music school, which was located outside of the Vatican gates. But because he too was an average teenager, he did not want to give his little sister a ride, and he told her she could walk, which unfortunately is a decision he's regretted for the rest of his life.
Oh, no. And by the way, how relevant is this case that you're bringing, considering a new pope was just appointed, the first American pope?
Well, honestly, it was probably all the publicity around the new pope that made things like this show up in my feed, that got me interested in researching more on the Vatican.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So out the door, Emanuela went, carrying her flute and a leather bag. And as far as we know, her music rehearsal went according to plan. And we are able to assume this because when rehearsal ended, Emanuela called home and spoke to her sister Federica sometime between 5 and 7 that evening. And during this call, Emanuela told Federica that a man who said he represented Avon, the cosmetics company, approached her on the street and offered her a job handing out pamphlets advertising Avon's products.
Oh, man. Okay. Skin So Soft was a staple at our home. Anything similar for you?
Oh, yes. And I will tell you, I just found an old bottle of Skin So Soft.
No, you
I
didn't.
did, and I sprayed it because there's something about that smell that just brings back
Yes.
such good memories. Because that was like a mosquito repellent. Did you
Yep.
use it? Yeah, as a mosquito
Yep.
repellent.
It was like every middle class family's mosquito repellent forever. The Skin So Soft by Avon, a
And
mosquito
it
repellent.
smelled
Yep.
good. It smelled really good. So I found this old bottle and I did not get rid of it because it was so nostalgic for me. And I was like, you know what?
Yes.
I'm going to use this. It probably is expired. I don't know. Do they even still make it? Probably.
I'm sure that they do. I don't really know why it even fell out of fashion because from what I could tell, it worked. Maybe chemicals and other stuff got better, or maybe it had a banned chemical. I can't imagine with a name like Skin So Soft. But yeah, I do remember that bottle going everywhere with us when I was a kid.
Yes. And it just, if you have never smelled it, I enjoy the smell, but a very distinct smell that just brings back childhood
Yeah,
camping trips.
and it's like a powdery, am I remembering correctly? It's like a powdery, florally. It doesn't smell anything like the modern like mosquito sprays to
Oh
me. It's
no.
so different.
It's
Yeah.
like it's a warm smell. I would describe it as warm. I'm not good at like picking out notes of
Okay.
smells or even taste, but to me it's very like warm, a cozy smell.
Yeah, maybe it's just, again, like you said, just total nostalgia. But that's so interesting that there was somebody trying to recruit a young girl to pass out pamphlets. Like, that seems a little unusual to me, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't know the way Avon worked back in the day.
Well, and Emanuela may have agreed with you because we don't know if this interaction scared her or maybe it just excited her or maybe she just thought it was interesting enough. But this was the topic of conversation on the phone with her sister that night. So it was enough that she felt like she wanted to tell her sister about it.
Maybe she got a whiff of that Skin So Soft. She couldn't resist.
Get you every time. After her rehearsal, Emanuela was supposed to meet up with her other sister, Maria, that night. But when Maria arrived at the meeting point, Emanuela wasn't there. And by 7:30, when it was clear that she was not going to be meeting as planned, Maria went home hoping to find that Emanuela had gone home. But she'd never made it home from her music rehearsal.
Oh, okay. That's not good.
By 9:30 that evening, when Emanuela still had not made it home, her family was obviously in a full-blown panic. She would never have stayed out past her curfew like this. Something was obviously wrong. So Emanuela's Uncle Marty went out looking for her, retracing what would have been her path that day and showing her photo to anyone he passed.
And this is outside the Vatican gates, right? The Vatican City gates. Is she still outside?
I don't think they know for sure. So her school was outside the gates. I don't know the exact meeting place where Maria were supposed to meet. I kind of assume it was inside the Vatican gates, but I can't say for sure. It wasn't far.
Okay.
Um, Even the school wasn't far, but they just retraced any area where she would have gone that night, where they knew she would have gone.
Okay. But I don't know. In this situation where you have like a very secure locked gate, somehow for me, that seemed like it would make it more likely that she would be found if she was inside the gates versus outside the gates. But that's probably a false sense of security altogether. But, just interesting.
I see what you're saying, but the gates didn't lock until midnight.
Right. Right. And it doesn't mean that there aren't bad people in there. So, I mean, I guess either again, it's one of these like gated communities. Like if a bad guy wants to get in there, he's going to get in there.
Right. But to answer your question, we do know that at least part of this evening she was outside of the Vatican.
Right. Okay.
Other family members started making phone calls to local hospitals, but no one they spoke to remembered seeing Emanuela. At this point, Emanuela's father, Cole, decided it was time to go to the police and file a missing persons report, but he was told no report would be made because Emanuela had not been missing long enough.
Oh, the classic. The classic.
I can only imagine the dread the Orlandi family felt when at midnight the Vatican's gates were closed.
Yeah. Oh, all the feel like I'm feeling it inside, but I can't even describe it in words. That feeling of the doors shutting.
Helpless. I think helpless is the word that comes to mind for me.
It's something almost worse than helpless, just dark. Just feels dark.
Yeah. After a sleepless night, the Orlandi family went to the police once again to report Emanuela missing, and this time they were successful. But after providing a photo of her to the police, the family was advised not to worry. Emanuela wasn't pretty enough to have been abducted. She probably just ran away.
No, they did not.
Can you imagine being told that?
I can't imagine saying that. Like,
No.
what?
And not that it matters, but obviously I've seen pictures of Emanuela, and wow, if she's not beautiful, I don't know what she is. I mean, she's gorgeous. So I don't know what was going on there, but what a horrific thing to say to a family for all the reasons.
That literally sounds made up. Like,
I know.
that couldn't possibly be a real scenario.
I know. Now, despite this opinion, word began spreading about the missing teenager, and two witnesses came forward, one a traffic warden and the other a retired police officer. And both of these witnesses reported seeing a girl fitting Emanuela's description being approached by a man who appeared to be between 30 and 45 years old, who was driving a green BMW. And I just want you to just remember green BMW. That might come back later.
I totally thought you were going to say a light pink Cadillac.
Oh, I see where you're going. Wait, isn't that Mary Kay?
Oh, wait, that is Mary Kay. Dang it. Did Avon have a car? Did
I
Avon have
don't
a special car?
know. I
No,
don't
the light pink
know.
Cadillac, you're right, it was Mary Kay. Man, I felt like I was going to have a good tie-in, but no, I picked the other one, the
Yes,
competitor.
you picked the competitor. No, it was a green BMW. And authorities do believe this is probably the quote unquote Avon man that Emanuela had told her sister about.
Yeah, that probably makes sense. This guy better not be giving Avon a bad name.
You know, I still love Avon. I love getting their little magazines. I don't ever buy anything, but it's just fun to look through it. Their little,
I don't
what are
get
they called?
Avon magazines. Maybe I need to look into that. Or maybe when we have a recording session, you could just bring yours over and we could
Well,
Google through it.
I don't have any recently, but like I think I had a friend of a friend who was like maybe having an Avon party, and I went. And you know, once you go, they
You're
get your
in.
information, and for a while you get the magazines. I haven't gotten any in a while, but when I got them, it was always kind of fun to look at. I'm sure all you have to do, Stephanie, to get one is just contact Avon and say you're interested. They would love to send you a magazine.
I get torn because I love looking at marketing materials, but I hate being marketed towards. So I've got a problem.
You do.
I want to look at marketing materials like on the side without them know I'm looking at it. That's why cookies on the internet are like the death of me. I'm like, I want to be able to look at your merchandise without you knowing I'm looking at your merchandise.
I can't remember what it was that I just did a quick Google search for the other day, and I am telling you the only thing showing up now on my feeds is whatever this is, and I don't even remember what it was. That's how interested I actually am in it. Like I don't even remember what it is, but man, you'd think I was an expert on this subject from everything that's popping up.
In some ways, this is a little bit of a non sequitur, but in some ways, it does work to my advantage a little bit because my husband, Barton, works from home a good deal of the week. And I can tell what internet searches he's been doing because, of course, it goes through our same Wi-Fi, right? And so I'll start getting ads on my social media for things that he's looking into.
Oh.
So all of a sudden, I'll start getting ads on, say, like luxury watches or hotels in Las Vegas or for Mother's Day. Things started popping up, things that like I never searched for. And I'm like, were you looking at necklaces? He's like, why do you ask? I get a read on what he's looking at too.
Yes, which would be good when you go gift shopping for him because you like know what he's interested in.
Yeah, I got it right there.
Yeah.
The cookies, the Alexas, the Googles, like they're just serving it up to me.
Yeah, love it. The leading newspaper wrote an article about Emanuela, including her photo and description, and the write-up included the Orlandi family home phone number. And this was not an unusual thing to do at the time when someone went missing, but the response it received did stand out. Because Emanuela was no ordinary girl. She was a Vatican girl, causing her case to immediately spark a lot of attention. And because the Orlandi family's home phone number had been made public, Their phone never stopped ringing, although many of these phone calls were just people harassing the family.
I hate that.
I will
Ugh.
never understand it. But not all of the calls were a waste of time. The Orlandi family did receive a phone call from someone who called himself Pierre Luigi. This man told the family that he and his girlfriend had been near the music school the day Emanuela went missing, and that he had met Emanuela. But strangely, he told her family that she had introduced herself as Barbara. He described Barbara as carrying a flute and a bag and selling Avon products. And these details were especially interesting because the Avon man detail had not been made public.
This sounds fishy.
It's fishy. So, probably because of this fishy lead, authorities decided to put a recording device on the Orlandi family phone, and just a couple of days later, another call came in. This call was from a man who said his name was Mario, who said he had met a young woman named Barbarella or Barbara, and the description he gave again matched Emanuela.
Also, Mario and Luigi.
I
Come
know.
on.
Well,
Come on. Are these
first-
made up names?
Well, this was in the 80s, early 80s. Was that before Mario Brothers?
I'm trying to remember. Was it like the mid 90s? That's when I got mine, but I know my family was a little late to the game. So, yeah, it probably predates Mario and Luigi, but also, I mean, come on. It's a weird detail.
I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, and it's Pierre Luigi, but it's a variation of Luigi. So Luigi and Mario, I was like, well, that's interesting. But do you think perhaps the Mario brothers chose those names because they were common Italian names?
I don't know. Is there a tipster that calls in and his name is Bowser?
No, but man, that would really be interesting.
That would seal the deal for me.
That would
If there's
seal
a
the deal.
Bowser, for sure, something's up.
Yeah. But how interesting is it that this person too said that this girl was named Barbara or Barbarella, a variation of Barbara?
Yeah, that's really strange to me.
Really strange.
And also, I don't know that I believe it. That's probably why I didn't even comment on it, because I'm like, I think you're making that up.
Well, this person told the Orlandi family that this girl had told him she'd had a concert coming up and she was supposed to be singing in the concert, which again was information that proved correct. And that was strange because most of the time, Emanuela would play an instrument in these concerts, but this specific year she was going to be singing. So the fact that this caller knew that, again, rang true. It sounded like Mario really had a real interaction with her.
So would the idea that maybe she was being trafficked, like someone told her to change her name?
I don't know. That might be.
But then also, why would she be hawking Avon? It's just so strange.
I personally can't make sense of this. I just think it's interesting that these two people,
Mario and Luigi,
Mario and Luigi, that their stories kind of lined up. It's just interesting.
Okay.
Now, it was the custom that every Sunday, the Pope, who at this time was John Paul II, would appear to the crowd in St. Peter's Square. The Sunday after Emanuela went missing, the Pope did something very unusual. He acknowledged the missing girl, saying, quote, "I would like to express the heartfelt feeling with which I join the Orlandi family who suffer for their 15-year-old daughter, Emanuela, who has not returned home since Wednesday, June 22nd. I share the anxieties and the anguished trepidation of the parents. We will not lose hope in the spirit of humanity of those who are responsible in this case." End quote. And the fact that the Pope spoke of the missing girl was considered highly, highly unusual.
And he also implied there was wrongdoing, like there were people actually responsible. Because at this point, I don't know that we've ruled out that she really did run away. I mean, typically in these cases, we don't think they did. Like, that's the conclusion. But at this point, I'm not hearing anything to say that she didn't say, you know what? If I can make money on my own, maybe I don't want to live in Vatican City anymore.
So, Stephanie, you just hit on something. A lot of people found the Pope's word choice very interesting because you're right. Up to this point, we just know she's missing. We don't know why. We don't know how. We don't know if it was her own choice. So the fact that he spoke of wrongdoing when that's not ever been made official is very interesting. I think that's interesting that you picked up on that.
And heck, maybe it was even an accident. Maybe she was accidentally hit by a car or something like that. I don't know. It seems like a leap with the information that we have right now.
I agree with you. And a lot of other people did too. Now, meanwhile, the phone calls to the Orlandis had not stopped, and 2 days after the Pope addressed the situation, another phone call was received, this time from a man who is referred to as the American. Now, this man was speaking Italian, but was doing so with an American accent, and he told Ercole, Emanuela's father, that the two previous callers, Para Luigi and Mario, were working with him and that he had possession of Emanuela. To prove that he really had the girl, the American proceeded to play a tape recording of a girl repeating the name of a school that was located in Rome that was known for being a really popular choice for the children of Italy's political elite. She just kept saying the name of the school over and over again. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you that to this day, there is no evidence suggesting a direct connection between the school and Emanuela's disappearance. However, the Orlandis said the voice on the tape was definitely Emanuela.
Of all the things that he could play to prove that he had her or to prove that she was alive, I guess is what he's also trying to prove, is the name of a school that she never attended and had no affiliation to.
It's weird, isn't it?
That makes no sense.
So as we go along, you will find if the major conspiracy theory that we're going to talk about is true, there seems to me to be like a lot of like hidden messages in this case. So that I can only assume, again, if this prevailing conspiracy theory is true, that that's just another hidden message, but nobody's ever been able to make sense out of it. And that might make more sense as we go along.
Okay. Right now, that makes no sense.
Well, the Orlandi family didn't know what to do, but they decided that if this American was telling the truth and really had their daughter, it would be in their best interest to stay on his good side. So they started saying things to him like, I can tell you are kind. Please be kind to our daughter. And the American went on to say that it was his personal wish that the ordeal end well, but the Italian authorities must release Ali Mehmet Agha by July 20th, or Emanuela would be killed.
All right, who's this guy?
Okay, this case just took a turn because Ali Agha was infamous around the world at this time because he had attempted to kill the Pope on May 13th, 1981. I want you to make a mental note of that date, May 13th. During a blessing of the crowd in St. Peter's Square, Pope John Paul II was hit by 2 bullets, one in his left hand, the other in his chest. At the time, 23-year-old Agha, a member of the Grey Wolves, which was a Turkish terrorist group, was convicted of the attempted murder and sentenced to life in prison.
Well, as he should have been.
Absolutely. Now, with this possible connection to a terrorist group, Emanuela's disappearance became a global story. And while the possibility that Emanuela would be released was encouraging, it also terrified Emanuela's family because if it truly was this group who had abducted her, I mean, they were incredibly dangerous, brutal people.
It sounds like it.
With only 12 days to the Americans' deadline, Ali Agha was brought to police headquarters in Rome. And as you can imagine, there was quite a crowd gathered, yelling and screaming for answers. But as he was being taken into the building, he denied any involvement in Emanuela's disappearance and went as far as to condemn the kidnapping, saying that he was, quote, with the innocent girl and her ailing family, end quote. During his interrogation, he told authorities he had not attempted to kill the Pope for the Grey Wolves. He did it because he'd been directed to do so by the KGB. And the KGB, for anyone who doesn't know, was the Soviet Union's secret service at the time.
Yeah, and not such great guys. They're a little scary. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to leave it at that. They are scary.
Yes. And I don't know, maybe unfortunately, this potential theory could ring true because Pope John Paul II was Polish and therefore unpopular with some of the communities, especially in Moscow. So let's say the KGB was behind the kidnapping of Emanuela, and therefore they're the ones demanding the release of Agca. They could be doing so because they want Agca in their possession so they can make sure he never tells anyone what he knows. Adding even more weight to the validity of this theory that the Grey Wolves were not the organization behind the kidnapping. Remember, the American claimed the two previous callers, both Italian men, were part of his group, and it would be highly unlikely that two Italian men would have a connection to the Turkish Grey Wolves. Meanwhile, more tips kept coming in. For instance, 3 days before the Americans' deadline, an Italian press agency claimed to have been contacted by the American, who said that proof of his abduction claims would be found in a specific trash can. And this was actually the second time this had happened. Previously, quote unquote, evidence had been found in a trash can, but this turned out to only be photocopies of documents, things like Emanuela's school ID, stuff like that. So it was nothing that actually proved, one, that this person had Emanuela, or two, that she was alive if they did. It was stuff that you probably could have gotten had you looked hard enough.
Okay, so the question is, at this point, do they actually have her, or are they trying to use her disappearance to their advantage?
Right. That was the first set of evidence found in a trash can, these photocopies of documents. The second piece of evidence was an audio tape. And on one side was the kidnapper's demand, Emanuela in exchange for Ali Agca, but on the other side of the tape was the sound of a girl moaning as if she was in pain. And if you do any research on this case, you'll see this tape described as an audio tape of a girl being tortured, which is just horrific.
Oh, and for her family, you're screaming with every fiber of your being that we're going to do whatever this guy tells us to do, even if he's just lying, because you can't not.
Right. What choice do you have?
Yep.
On July 20th, the day of the deadline, a final call came in from the American. He advised that Emanuela was still alive, but would not be in a few hours if Agca wasn't released. But Ali Agca was never going to be released, and the midnight deadline came and went. Now, authorities had put enough weight into the Americans' claims that now that the deadline had come and gone, they began making efforts to find Emanuela's body, believing she probably would have been killed. They looked in suspicious vehicles, they started searching the waterways, but her body was never found. So, with that, there was a renewed hope that perhaps Emanuela was still alive and the kidnappers would realize that Agca was never going to be freed, and instead, maybe they would make a new demand in exchange for the girl, this time one that was obtainable.
Or maybe these kidnappers never had her to begin with.
Could be. They may not. They may not have. Is that where you're leaning so far?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
But I don't know. I could be swayed.
Well, at the same time, the Secret Service told the Orlandi family that things were getting too big and too overwhelming for the family to continue to handle the incoming phone calls.
Or just too emotionally draining.
Oh, I don't see how I would have been able to handle these phone calls in the first place. I mean, just like you said, the emotional impact alone. It's surprising to me that they were asked to handle this. So the Orlandis were advised to have all the future calls transferred to an attorney's office. And at first, Urquhart refused to do this, saying he wasn't able to afford that service, but he was assured that no payment would be necessary and the calls were transferred.
Oh, well, that's how kind. How kind of you.
Right. However, they were transferred to attorney Gennaro Egidio, a lawyer specializing in bankruptcy who had no experience in criminal law, hostage negotiations, or terrorism. So it seemed
Oh,
an odd choice for representation.
good grief. What the heck?
On December 14th, this attorney received a final phone call related to Emanuela, and after that, only silence. And as we've heard in previous cases, it was the silence that was the most distressing part for the Orlandi family. They said the silence could have meant anything. But 10 days after this final phone call, on Christmas Eve, Cole got a phone call with some surprising news. Pope John Paul II was coming to visit the Orlandi home. And when he arrived, he was sympathetic toward the family. It was a beautiful visit, bringing some much needed encouragement. And the Pope told the Orlandi family that the powers that be were doing everything possible for Emanuela, and he referred to the case as a case of international terrorism.
I don't know. Maybe this is totally cynical of me, but is this some kind of publicity thing? I mean, was the Pope trying to insert himself into this? I mean, it's a wonderful thing, but I would want to know like the context of, was this a small private meeting with the family, or was this like a big kind of media thing?
I think at the time, the family took it as a much needed, encouraging visit.
Okay.
And I didn't get the impression there was like a bunch of press going on. So I took it as this was a kind, appropriate thing to do, is how I took
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay.
And I think even the fact that at this point the Pope is referring to the case as international terrorism, I think even that at this point, they've heard the demands. The Americans already come forward. They have all this information. So I feel like they're going off of that when he uses the term international terrorism.
Yeah, I actually don't have an issue with that so much. And as you've explained the meeting, it sounds like it would have been beneficial for the family. So, yeah, okay, all this sounds kosher.
Yeah. It was just unusual. It wasn't necessarily typical, just like the fact that he spoke on it, that the Pope spoke on it just a few days after she went missing. It was extraordinary, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, but at the same time, how often do girls go missing from Vatican City?
Well, we'll talk about that at the end.
Oh, so in my mind, I'm thinking this is a very unusual situation.
I mean, unfortunately, and I don't have statistics in front of me, but unfortunately, I think girls go missing from everywhere. So, but we will talk about other missing girls maybe at the end.
Okay.
I will tell you there was no more contact from the American, and Emanuela's case grew cold. A horrific decade went by, and in 1993, the Orlandi family was shown a photo of a woman taken inside a convent and asked if they believed it could be Emanuela. On July 22nd, 1993, the local police and Interpol surrounded the convent and took this woman into custody with the plan to take her to meet Maria, Emanuela's mother, who traveled to see if this really could be her daughter. But heartbreakingly, the woman was not Emanuela, and once again, the devastated family returned to their home without their daughter. In 2004, Cole died, having never given up on the idea that his daughter would be coming home. On his deathbed, he uttered the words, quote, "I was betrayed by those I served," end quote.
Oh, I wonder what his theory was. Those I served, that sounds like he's pointing towards people in positions of power within his city, which is the big man himself, right?
Could be. I really don't know exactly what he meant. Pope John Paul II died the following year. And here's where I'm going to stop and tell you that from this point on, I'm just going to start introducing you to some new people. and potential conspiracy theories that the documentary specifically focused on. So, this next part is one version of what may have happened to Emanuela. A man named Andrea Purgatori, a prominent and accomplished journalist, screenwriter, and author, who also helped produce the documentary on which I based this episode, had a friend who was high up in the Italian Secret Service. And allegedly, this source told Andrea that they questioned the validity of the Americans' claim. To them, it appeared that Emanuela's kidnappers had no real plan. And if the KGB had actually been responsible, there would have definitely been a plan.
I agree with that.
Also, this Secret Service agent told Andrea that the cassette tape of the girl being tortured had been analyzed, and some believed it was actually the soundtrack to a pornographic tape.
Oh, okay. I can see that. I mean, not having heard the tape, obviously, but it does make sense because, even the thing where she's saying the school's name, it's like, where did you get that one weird clip of somebody saying something? Again, like a moaning sound. I mean, that could have been from anywhere.
Right. And I'll tell you, I hope this was a soundtrack to, pornographic tape as opposed to someone actually being injured.
Of course.
Andrea's source believes that all of these red herrings could have been decoys to take attention off of what had really happened to Emanuela. So with that, think of everything I've told you so far as all just being a ruse. Potentially. As the years passed, a new witness emerged. A news reporter named Rafaela received a message saying that if she wanted to know who was responsible for Emanuela's disappearance, she should look at who was buried in the crypt of Santa Apollinare Basilica and the favor that Renatino did for Cardinal Poletti at the time. The Basilica is a Vatican-owned church, and it's important to know that no one could be buried there without special permission from the Vatican. So this reporter, Rafaela, went to visit this basilica, located in the center of Rome, next to Emanuela's music school. And when she arrived, she learned that buried in the crypt was the most powerful gangster in Rome, Enrico de Paetus, known as the King of the Underworld. Why would such a figure be buried in the Vatican Church? And Rafaela wasn't the only one to find this strange. In fact, a newspaper article from 1997 had reported on the burial, provoking protests from the police union. The official reply of the then director of the basilica was that the criminal was buried there due to his charity to the poor who attended the basilica, as well as his large donations to the establishment itself.
I don't know. Sounds like there might have been a bit of corruption involved there.
Maybe.
I don't know if that would justify being buried at the basilica. I don't know.
Well, to find out more, because remember, Rafaela's being told to find out what happened to Emanuela, look into this person buried at this basilica, this gangster.
It's not cool, but again, we need to know the tie-in. Right.
Well, here we go. Rafaela decided to track down a woman named Sabrina Rinaldi, and Sabrina was Enrico's longtime lover, and she was his lover at the time of Emanuela's disappearance. Sabrina shared that she had dated Enrico for about a month before she saw in the paper one morning that he was wanted for 8 murders. But, Stephanie, you know how love can sometimes make you ignore red flags?
I don't know if I could ignore 8 murders, but sure.
Well,
it's more like, hey, your feet kind of stink, or you don't put your dishes in the dishwasher. Those are more things that I can sometimes overlook, but this sounds like something maybe more. So I partway acknowledge what you're saying.
All I can say is Sabrina must have been pretty in love because she asked Enrico about these 8 murders and he denied it. So she just moved on. Okay.
Oh, Sabrina.
Now, Sabrina went on to tell Rafaela what she remembered of the following events, but she prefaced the interview with the fact that she had used a lot of cocaine in the summer of 1983, so she was going to tell what she could remember.
Maybe if she was kept in healthy supply, it might have been easier to overlook murders.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but you're right. You're absolutely
I mean,
right.
if he's this big mob boss, I'm sure drugs were easy for him to obtain. So as long as she was happy, quote, happy in her situation, maybe it was easy to overlook some of his, shall we call them, shortcomings.
The thing that I never get about these situations is like if you know somebody's capable of murder or even capable of murder, I don't know, 8 times, are you not at all concerned that you might be having a bad day and they get sick of you and they take you out? Like, I would just never feel safe, ever.
I have not been a drug user. And so I say this from the other side of the fence. So I may be totally off base. I recognize there are certain walks of life. I can only guess what it's like. But I imagine when you're in that state, you're not really thinking clearly.
Yeah,
Because you're already in kind of a dangerous situation in your life anyway.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, that would be my 2 cents. Obviously, not knowing either of these people or having, experienced a drug habit. That would be my takeaway.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can see that. Well, Sabrina said that there was a particular day where she and Enrico had visited a lake, and while they were there, Enrico's driver arrived with a girl. Enrico told Sabrina that she needed to take this girl back to her house and keep her there for a few days. And while this girl was at Sabrina's house for a total of 10 days,
What? Okay. So she went from just being the innocent girlfriend to now like an accomplice in kidnapping.
oh no, she's an accomplice. If this is true, she's an
Okay.
accomplice. But
Okay.
in my opinion, she's absolutely involved. So she took this girl back to her house where she stayed for a total of 10 days. And while the girl was at Sabrina's house, Enrico had a woman named Adelaide come over and take care of the girl. And by taking care, I mean that she just gave her a bunch of pills to keep her pretty out of it. This girl was barely coherent.
Whether this is Emanuela or another girl, this is bad.
Oh, it's horrific. You don't keep a girl drugged up in your house for 10 days because your boyfriend tells you to. Yeah, no, no good. And as far as it being Emanuela, one day when she was out and about, Sabrina recognized the girl from the missing persons posters that were plastered throughout Rome. The girl in her house was Emanuela Orlandi.
Oh, okay.
After 10 days, Emanuela was moved to a second location, which was another house with a large basement. Now, eventually, Sabrina was asked to take Emanuela to a Vatican patrol station where she would be picked up by a person dressed as a priest. Now, I don't know if this is just a person dressed as a priest or if this person was a priest.
Okay.
Sabrina drove Emanuela to the patrol station in a green BMW. I told you at the top of this case that Emanuela was seen being approached by an Avon man driving a green BMW. Now, I'm sure
Right.
there's more than one in Rome, but I found that interesting because those were eyewitnesses. That was not Mario and Luigi. Those were
Right.
eyewitnesses.
Right. Right.
Sabrina was later interviewed by authorities, and the details of her story held up. She was able to retrace the route she took into the Vatican to hand Emanuela over, and she was able to describe the second location where Emanuela was held after leaving her own house. At the same time, I've also read articles that said Sabrina's story started to change. The dates started to change, timing started to change, and they weren't sure if that would have been related to the drug use or if perhaps bits and pieces or potentially all of the story was untrue.
I was actually going to comment that's incredible that she remembered so many details based on the fact that she was using at the time. So I would kind of expect some of the details to be a little bit fuzzy, a little bit blurry, if you will. Yeah, interesting.
I agree with you. At the same time, I think that if I were holding a kidnapped girl hostage in my home, I'd probably remember a good bit of it. But again, I'm not really sure. I do find Sabrina's story compelling. I think it's interesting. I think it could be true. But let's say we have found our who. Let's say we found our who. We still need a why. So,
Well, why would Sabrina come forward with this story at all? So she's approached, they're like, hey, listen, we heard you dated this bad guy. Do you know anything about Emanuela? Why would she have come up with the story? Like, what does she have to gain by coming up with this story?
well, and to answer your question, in all honesty, I don't know. Maybe she did gain something. She was also interviewed in the Netflix documentary. I don't know. Maybe there was payment. Maybe there wasn't. I'm not sure. But because I thought the same thing. I thought, gosh, I would never, if I'd done this, I would never be going public with it, especially on a documentary that's going to be shared on Netflix. But I don't know if you're getting paid, maybe. Or I don't know. I didn't read anything about, hey, you'll be offered immunity. Because again, from my research, she was talking to a reporter and then a documentarian. She was later interviewed by authorities as well. So I don't know what she would have to gain either way, quite frankly, unless she actually wanted to help figure out what happened to the girl.
Well, that would be the gain of helping. I don't know what she would have gained otherwise. It just seems like a pretty big story to fabricate.
I agree. I agree. For me, I know there's probably many, many green BMWs in Rome, but to me, it's the little stuff like that that could absolutely just be coincidence. But it's the little stuff like that, oh yeah, I was driving a green BMW, which just happened to be what the two independent witnesses saw Emanuela.
I mean, at this point, this is the most compelling theory I've heard thus far.
Right, right. Well, like I said, we may have found a who. We still need a why. So on that note, let me introduce you to a man named Roberto Calvi, a corrupt money man who was chairman and CEO of one of the most highly regarded banks in Rome, Banco Ambrosiano. Now, I told you to remember the date of the attempted Pope assassination, May 13th. That date corresponds with a prophecy made on May 13th, 1917, where 3 kids claimed to have been visited by the Virgin Mary. In this prophecy, the Virgin Mary told the kids that the Pope would be killed unless Russia was brought back to the Catholic faith. Now, how could Russia be brought back to the Catholic faith? Well, for starters, they would need to rid Russia of the communist rule. So this theory goes, allegedly, the Catholic Church sent money secretly from the Vatican to the anti-communist movements in Poland, where the #1 anti-communist movement was located. And it's believed by some that the church channeled over $200 million to these movements. But this would be a big problem because the church was supposed to be giving their money to missions and Catholic institutions, not to political movements. So these transactions would have to be hidden. They absolutely could not appear on any books. Enter Roberto Calvi, the big bank CEO, who was also laundering money for organized crime. The way he was able to keep everything appearing as if it was on the up and up, Calvi sent the money from Banco Ambrosiano through the Vatican Bank, because the Vatican Bank was a different state and they had different foreign exchange rules. And then from the Vatican Bank, the money went to shared companies to be laundered. After the money was cleaned, it went back to the Vatican Bank, then back to Banco Ambrosiano, then finally back to the private investors, aka mafia, with profits. Now, allegedly, the system worked for a while, but by early 1982, Calvi found himself in a tricky situation with his financial documents being reviewed. And ultimately, Banco Ambrosiano went into bankruptcy and Roberto Calvi disappeared. But on Friday, June 18th,
quote, disappeared.
But in 1982, Roberto Calvi's body was found hanging from scaffolding under Blackfriars Bridge in an apparent suicide. But here's the thing. Calvi's friends and family didn't think this was possible. Calvi was a very devout Catholic, and in the Catholic faith, suicide is frowned upon. Also, his body was found with about $6,000 on him, but in various currencies. His pockets were also weighted down with stones. Investigators attempted to recreate the hanging, and suicide was pretty much ruled out as a possibility, which means he was murdered. But in order for him to have been murdered in this way, his killers would have had to approach the scaffolding by boat. And this would have been really difficult because this water was very turbulent. On top of the fact that his killers would have had to lift his body to the place it was found and stage the hanging. So, why would his killers go to so much trouble? It was determined that for all of this to have been done, there must have been a reason why he was found under the bridge in this fashion. There must have been a message in all of this. So some believe the various currencies of money means that this was money related, okay? The location, Blackfriars Bridge, related back to the Vatican because the Blackfriars were an order of Catholic monks that used to operate in the city. So what they've determined is that Roberto Calvi's death was a message to the Vatican. This is what happens when someone doesn't return our money. So the idea is that with all the money going back and forth, the Vatican didn't return all of the money to wherever it was supposed to go. So this was the message. So if we apply this theory to Emanuela's case, Emanuela was a Vatican girl kidnapped on June 22nd, 1983, which was a symbolic date because it was the same date that the Pope had returned home from Poland. So literally, while the Pope is being celebrated by the entire world, Emanuela is being abducted.
Gotcha.
Now, this is the prevailing theory in the Netflix documentary, that it's all just this big cover-up. The Vatican's involved. Everybody's dirty. Everything about the American is just a ruse.
But I'm still not seeing how Emanuela fits into this. So you've got this corrupt bank who's got it out for the Vatican. So they kill the middleman, if you will. Like the mafia kills the middleman, the owner of the bank, to send the Vatican a message. But then they also go and abduct Emanuela?
Emanuela, she was one of theirs. You know, she was an innocent. She was a Vatican girl. She was.
But don't you think then she would have been found in a similar situation? I feel like if that's the case, wouldn't her disappearance and death, they would have made it more of a show?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying. I don't know the answer because she's never been found. So I agree with you. Let us know. Let us know what you did. So going back to Enrico, authorities actually opened his tomb because remember, this reporter had been pointed to his tomb. If you want to know what happened with Emanuela, go find this guy. They opened his tomb to see if they could find evidence of Emanuela there. And there wasn't any. They actually opened 2 more tombs. This isn't in my script. This is just how many theories are out there about Emanuela's disappearance because they opened 2 more tombs. It was the tombs of 2 different princesses because they got a tip saying, if you want to know where Emanuela is, look at where the angel is looking. There's like a statue of an angel and she was looking like towards the tombs of these 2 princesses. So they opened both of those tombs. And not only did they not find Emanuela there, the princesses weren't there either. So
what?
Something is going on in Rome. You know, something is going on. And I don't have all the answers at all, obviously. I will tell you, over decades of investigations, the circumstances of Emanuela's disappearance have led many investigators to doubt the abduction hypothesis, which it kind of sounds like you might also still be doubting that. First of all, the fact that the girl was last seen on one of Rome's busiest streets in full daylight suggested that it was unrealistic that she would have been taken by force without anyone noticing. Some investigators believe it was more realistic to think that she had gone with someone she knew. In July 1993, a cardinal made some ambiguous statements about Emanuela. In an interview, he claimed that in the days following her disappearance, he heard a conversation between 2 police officers who said that they saw Emanuela returning to the Vatican the very evening of her disappearance in a luxury car.
A green BMW, perhaps?
That wasn't said.
That would qualify as a luxury car.
It would. It absolutely would. Emanuela apparently left the Vatican gates 20 minutes later, getting in the car again and leaving. And these two officers were not able to see who the car driver was, but they had the impression he parked a few meters away so as not to be recognized. Now, since the early 2000s, an Italian journalist had conducted a detailed study of Emanuela's case based on judicial documents, and he has rejected the kidnapping hypothesis. He claimed that in 2005, he'd come to know from a source inside the Vatican that Emanuela died accidentally on the night of her appearance during just a friendly meeting with high-ranking Vatican figures in an apartment near the Vatican. Now, according to this reporter, Orlandi had been involved in this type of meeting for some time before her disappearance, but on the night of June 22nd, 1983, she died under unknown circumstances. He's also stated that the theory of kidnapping by international terrorists was contrived to divert attention from the scandal.
She was just at a get-together and just died?
Yeah, and here's the thing. Why would a 15-year-old girl be having a friendly get-together with high-ranking Vatican figures in a secret apartment? So to me, that doesn't sound like anything good.
No.
So I can see all kinds of things going wrong. Secret meetings.
Don't like any of that.
No, terrible. In 2017, an Italian journalist came into possession of secret Vatican documents that had been stolen in 2014. One of these documents, signed March 28, 1997, allegedly shows that the Vatican spent over 483 million lire on supporting Emanuela from 1983 until 1997, including expenses for her education and medical care. The document suggested that Emanuela had lived in London under Vatican protection for several years and that her remains had been sent back to the Vatican following her eventual death. Both the Vatican and Italian authorities regard the documents as false.
Oh, okay. What would that even mean? That she knew something she shouldn't know? Or they wanted her disappearance to fit some agenda and they just made her disappear for a while?
I honestly couldn't figure it out. But the only reason why I even bring it up is because allegedly there's documentation of it. So I thought it was worth mentioning. But
yeah,
I don't know the why. I really don't. In the 2000s, Judge Otello Lupacchini and journalist Max Parisi conducted a study of over 12 cases of young girls missing and murdered in Rome between 1982 and 1990, and hypothesized that all of them were victims of a serial killer due to the similarities of the murders and their proximity within the city. So earlier you asked me if more than just one girl was going missing. 12 young girls went missing in 8 years. Lupacchini and Parisi put forth the theory that Emanuela Orlandi was a victim of this serial killer. And according to them, this man lured the girls with job offerings like selling Avon products and then kidnapped and killed them. Over the many years, questions have been raised as to why the Vatican never opened an official investigation into Emanuela Orlandi's disappearance, even though she was a Vatican citizen.
And the Pope clearly considered this an important case, like an important family. You know what I'm saying? The fact that he made a speech about it and he visited her family. You would think that he would say, we're going to do everything we can by opening an investigation.
Right. Well, the unofficial reply from the Vatican was that since she had disappeared on Italian territory, it fell under Italian jurisdiction.
But we don't know where she disappeared from.
Right. We really don't. We know her school was outside of the Vatican gates. That could she have come back in? Again, we really don't know. We're going off of eyewitness accounts, but there are eyewitness accounts saying she was seen coming back in to the Vatican. So I don't know. So that is just some of the theories of what may have happened to Emanuela Orlandi. I picked what I believe to be the most probable to focus on. There are many, many.
I just think situations like this get very sticky, and there's a lot of finger pointing when you have lots of people in power that could benefit through illegal measures, and where there is a little bit of this power struggle of who's really in charge, who can get something from the other. And I would hate to think that Emanuela was caught in the crossfire of that. Or I would hate to think that her disappearance was used to try to fit agendas by these large organizations. Her disappearance may not be connected to any of these organizations.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, you have a 15-year-old young, happy girl who just disappeared. And I'm with you. For someone to be responsible for it is horrific. And for someone to take responsibility for it or try to use it in their favor, I just can't imagine doing something so vile.
Yeah, but it sounds like these particular individuals that we've talked about, their moral compass is slightly askew.
We talked about a lot of corrupt people today. A lot of corrupt people. Or the idea that some institutions could be more corrupt than we believe, or have moments of corruption that we were unaware of.
I don't lean one direction or the other in what you've presented, because none of them to me say, okay, that's it. Like that seals the deal for me. None of them had a point where I felt like, okay, that's the thing. That's what did it.
Actually, for me, I think the fact that 12 girls went missing in an 8-year period from a relatively close proximity, to me, that's interesting. As I mentioned earlier, I don't have statistics in front of me. So maybe 12 girls go missing from every place over an 8-year period, and it's just runaways or this or that. I don't know. Maybe that's not a lot. But to me, when I say it out loud, 12 young girls over 8 years believed to have been murdered by a serial killer, that seems like a lot. I feel like a serial killer could be responsible for this.
Maybe, but a serial killer that's an average of every 9 months over 8 years? I don't know. I think it's more likely they're unrelated. That's my opinion, I think. Now, I would want to know the circumstances. Were they all just missing? Or, were they actually found? Were there signatures? There's a lot more questions to look into that, but 12 over 8 years doesn't seem completely overwhelming when you think of all the reasons that young girls could disappear. Truly runaways, maybe there was accidents, maybe they fell in a river, maybe a scorned lover. I mean, who knows? There's lots of reasons. So to immediately attribute that to a serial killer, I don't know. I'd need to know more about that.
I'm with you. Over the course of 8 years, it's probably not a lot, statistically speaking.
Correct. I mean, is it horrendous? Yes. Is it obvious to me that Emanuela was part of that? No, not really. I mean, it's as compelling as any of these others, but also I hate the idea of these ne'er-do-wells even having her name in their mouth.
Yeah, I'm with you. This is a heavy one.
So our branch of hope for the month of May 2025 is the JED Foundation, JED, and it's a nonprofit organization that protects emotional health and prevents suicide for teens and young adults in the United States. JED empowers teens and young adults by building resiliency and life skills, promoting social connectedness, and encourage help-seeking and help-giving behaviors through nationally recognized programs, digital channels, partnerships, as well as the media. And as an added bonus, we have discussed that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's such a great tie-in because sometimes we all need a little bit of help. The world is kind of crazy out there. We want you to know that you're not alone. You're not alone. There is help for you, and there are others that are going through very similar situations to you. There are. You are not on an island. If you can benefit from contacting the JED Foundation, we encourage you to do that. If you would like to be a mentor in the JED Foundation to help other teens, maybe you're an adult who experienced suicidal thoughts or bullying when you were a teen, you could be a mentor for a teen going through a similar situation right now. So we encourage you to reach out to them. If you are a Patreon member, know that a portion of your subscription is going to the Judd Foundation this month to help to promote positive mental health. And we encourage you to find out more about the Jed Foundation by either going directly to their website, jedfoundation.org, or you can head to our website, thedarkoak.com. You can head to our Instagram, The Dark Oak Podcast, or you can send us a message and we'll be happy to get you connected with the right people.
I love it. I'm super excited to support them this month. I just get so excited over our Branch of Hope recipients. What an awesome opportunity we have to help others.
Yeah, what's cool is when we started this podcast, we had kind of a list of cases that we wanted to cover. And now we not only have a list of cases that we want to cover, but we also have nonprofit organizations that we want to sponsor, that we want to help, that we want to partner with. So that's really encouraging and really exciting. And I love that this podcast is continuing to continuing to pay it forward. We're helping by spreading awareness about these unsolved cases, but we're also physically, monetarily giving back to our community as well. And that just fills my heart.
Mine too. Well, thanks for listening. Well, don't forget to come back on Friday for your bonus episode this week. And we will see you then.
Bye-bye, Shiver Seekers.
Bye.
This episode of The Dark Oak was created, researched, written, recorded, hosted, edited, published, and marketed by Cynthia and Stephanie of Just Us Gals Productions, and made possible by you, our shiver-seeking listener. Special thanks goes to Justice Himes for our incredible artwork and Ryan Crete for our amazing music.